What happened next will absolutely shock you. Listen, I'm gonna lay this out for you and you're probably gonna think I'm crazy. You're probably gonna say, oh, it's just your past trauma talking. And maybe you're right. I've got my share of mental baggage and big life moments always seem to trigger these episodes of mine. But this feeling, this is something else entirely. It started about 2 months before our wedding, when the world was supposed to be a fairy tale of anticipation. Instead, it became a slow-burn nightmare of paranoia that has consumed my life. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a calm night, the kind of stillness that feels heavy. I was just chilling on the couch, the soft hum of the TV my only company. My fiancé, let's call him Alex, was in the front room, lost in the glow of his computer screen. I'd taken my usual edible for my insomnia, to turn off my brain and just let the day go. It was never a problem. It never triggered my anxiety. Until that night. Suddenly I heard it. The unmistakable click of the front door. Not a gentle closing but a sharp, definitive sound. My heart leaped into my throat. Why would he go outside? I sat there, frozen for what felt like an eternity but was probably only a minute. My mind raced, conjuring up 100 different scenarios. The edible, which usually brought calm, now seemed to sharpen every sense, every fear. I heard nothing. No footsteps, no voice. Just the heavy silence of the house. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I tiptoed to the front door, my breath catching in my chest. Just as I reached for the handle, he was there. He was coming back in, his hand already on the doorknob. He was on his phone, and the moment he saw me, he snatched it away from his ear like a hot potato. He had this startled look on his face, a flash of something I couldn't quite place. Guilt? Fear? When he came inside, he started talking a mile a minute. Oh, that was just my dad. He's calling late from work about the game. He was over-explaining, his words tripping over each other. And it made sense. His dad did call it weird hours. But why outside? Why the secrecy? It was like a tiny crack had appeared in the foundation of my trust. A hairline fracture that no one else could see but me. And from that moment on, the crack became a chasm. He started hiding his phone every time I walked into the room. A quick flip, a slide under his leg, a flick of the screen to lock it. Every single time. I'd call him out on it and he'd have some flimsy excuse. I was just checking the weather. Oh, the screen was too bright. It was infuriating. I wanted to ask to see his phone to just put my mind at ease, but I couldn't. He had this whole sob story about how his ex-girlfriends had constantly accused him of cheating, and one of them turned out to be the real cheater. I wanted to respect his privacy, but every time he pulled that phone away, a little piece of me died inside. On top of that, something else had shifted. Since we bought our house 3 years ago, our intimacy had vanished. It was like living with a ghost. We went from being incredibly close to nothing. He always had an excuse. He was tired, stressed, busy with work. But it didn't feel right. When I tried to initiate anything, I'd be filled with this crushing guilt, feeling like I was pressuring him into something he didn't want. It was always one-sided, and it made me feel worthless, like a burden. The house, which was supposed to be our sanctuary, felt like a cold, empty tomb. I was lonelier than I had ever been, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living a lie. The paranoia was like a slow-moving poison, seeping into every corner of my life. It was a constant hum in my head, a whisper that I couldn't silence. Then, a few days ago, I saw a TikTok video that sent a jolt of ice through my veins. The girl in the video said her boyfriend was hiding his side girl's number under mom in his contacts. It was such a specific, bizarre detail. And of course, just a day later, we were in the car and his phone rang. Mom calling, the screen said. We answered, and it was indeed his mother. My heart was pounding, a drum against my ribs. But then as he hung up and the call log popped up on his screen, I saw it. The contact was labeled work. My brain went blank for a second. His mom has only one number. Why would it say work? I said nothing. I didn't want to seem crazy, but the image of that label was burned into my mind. Another crack. He had also been using my car for work because it was more fuel efficient. One day we switched back and I was cleaning it out. That's when I found it. A tiny, ugly jewelry-like object. It looked like a single earring, but it was just so... not me. I didn't even think to take a picture, I just threw it out. When I asked him about it, his response was so cold, so dismissive. "Who would I have had in your car?" he asked, as if the question itself was absurd. It was like he was a stranger, a perfectly carved mannequin of the man I loved. He didn't even pretend to consider it. Just outright dismissal. I couldn't get it out of my head. The little moments, the little lies. They were adding up, creating a picture of a life I didn't recognize. The girl from his work he used to talk about all the time? Her name had completely vanished from his conversations. Now it was all about the guys he worked with. Then he called me the other day so nonchalantly and told me he was going to the movies with some of said guys, on a day we were supposed to spend time together. It was a lie so transparent, so lazy that it was insulting. And every time I would try to talk to him to get to the bottom of this, he would turn it on me. The last time I confronted him about hiding his phone, he actually got angry. It was one of our rare fights, and the way he spoke to me, it was chilling. "Because you keep accusing me, it must be you doing something," he said, his voice hard. It was the ultimate betrayal. He was saying the exact words that every cheater says, twisting the narrative to make me the bad guy. I was losing my mind, losing my reality. But the deepest cut came from his family. My relationship with his mother used to be so close. We'd have lunch together at least once a week. Now it's like she's a different person. She's still sweet to my face, but she makes these subtle, venomous comments. On Father's Day, I came over straight from work, exhausted and didn't want to stay too late. She looked at me, her smile not reaching her eyes, and said I shouldn't have come at all. Later, as we were leaving, she asked what we were going to do at home. When Alex said he was going to play games since I wanted to go to bed, she looked right at me and said, "What a lonely life." The comment hit me like a physical blow. It was so mean, so calculated. I was unraveling, and everyone I talked to, all my friends, just said, I could never see him doing something like that. He loves you so much. But if he loves me, why do I feel so lonely? Why do I feel this deep, crushing paranoia? Am I just insane? The walls of our life together were closing in, a slow, suffocating squeeze. The incidents kept piling up, a grotesque mosaic of deceit. I couldn't help but revisit the GPS anomaly. I had decided to check our shared location on my phone, something I rarely did. He was at work and the dot on the map was there in a familiar office park. But then as I watched, it started to move. It wasn't a smooth, logical progression. It was a chaotic, dizzying jump, like a glitch in the system. One moment he was at the office. The next he was in a residential neighborhood a few miles away. The dot would jump back and forth from the office to the neighborhood and back again for a few minutes at a time. I'd read that GPS can sometimes be wonky, but this was different. This was a pattern. I confronted him about it, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and desperation. His reaction was not what I expected. Instead of a careful excuse, he flew into a rage. Where else would I be but work? You know my hours, he yelled, his face contorted in anger. It was a performance, a masterful deflection. He made me feel small, crazy, and utterly alone. I started to spiral. My therapist had taught me to trust my gut, to listen to the quiet, intuitive voice. But my gut was screaming, and the world was telling me I was paranoid. The more I felt it, the more I saw it, the more everyone around me, including his family, seemed to conspire to make me doubt myself. It was a classic gaslighting technique, but I didn't have the mental clarity to fight it. My trauma, my past anxieties, they were being used against me. It was like I was in a dark room, and every time I tried to turn on a light, he would flip the switch and plunge me back into the shadows. My fear wasn't about him cheating anymore. It was about losing my mind. Was I losing my mind? Was I making this all up? The little lies, the cold touch, the hurtful comments from his mother. It was a symphony of psychological torment. One night I couldn't sleep. The silence was deafening, the shadows in the room felt like monsters. I tiptoed to the living room and saw his computer screen. It was on, and a private browser window was open. I knew I shouldn't. I knew I was betraying his trust, but I couldn't stop myself. My heart was pounding, a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I had to know. I clicked on the browser, and the first thing I saw was a series of emails. They were between him and his mother. My blood ran cold. The subject lines were cryptic, filled with a secret language I couldn't understand. The deal is almost done. The date is set. She's on to us. I scrolled down, my hands shaking. The messages were about me. They were planning something, a secret plot. And the more I read, the more twisted it became. They weren't talking about another woman. They were talking about me, my mental health issues, my episodes. And they were gloating. His mother's hurtful comments, the disappearing intimacy, the secrecy. It wasn't about another woman at all. It was about something far more sinister. They were trying to drive me crazy. They were trying to get me to a point where I would have an episode so bad that I would be institutionalized and they could claim my assets in our house. The jewelry I found in the car. It wasn't an earring. It was a micro-recording device. They were documenting my paranoia, my spiraling, to use as evidence. The work contact was a burner phone he used to communicate with his mother without a trace. And the GPS jumping? He wasn't cheating. He was going to a lawyer's office to discuss our assets, a place his mother had suggested. The guys he was going to the movies with? They were his lawyer and a private investigator, all part of their plan. The whole time I was a pawn in their cruel, calculated game. A wave of nausea washed over me. I wasn't paranoid. I was a victim. My mind, my trust, my sanity. It had all been a weapon they were using against me. The guilt I felt, the insecurity, the loneliness. It was all by design. I stumbled back from the computer, my body trembling with a cold rage. I needed to get out. I ran to the car, my heart pounding, but not with fear anymore. With a fierce, blazing clarity. I drove to the one place I knew would be safe. My best friend's house. I told her everything. She listened, her face a mask of shock and horror. She helped me download everything from Alex's computer onto a flash drive, and we went to the police. They were skeptical at first. But when we showed them the emails, the GPS data, the photos of the microphone, their faces changed. They saw the pattern, the calculated cruelty. They saw what I saw. It turned out Alex and his mother had been scheming for years. They'd been counting on my history of mental health issues to give them an easy way out of our marriage. One that would leave me with nothing and them with everything. But what they didn't count on was my unwavering love, my gut instinct, and my friends' support. The legal proceedings were a whirlwind. It was a messy, public nightmare, but with the evidence we had, they didn't stand a chance. My husband was arrested, charged with attempted fraud and psychological abuse. His mother was charged as his accomplice. I had to testify, reliving every single moment of their cruelty, but I did it with my head held high. And then it was over. The judge ruled in my favor, not just giving me the house, but a substantial settlement from his family's assets. The man I loved, the man who had promised to stand by me through everything, was gone. But in his place, a new person emerged. Me. I had been tested, pushed to the very brink of sanity, and I had survived. I took the settlement money and bought a new house, a real home, a sanctuary of my own. I started a foundation to help other people who have been victims of psychological abuse. And my friend, my amazing loyal friend, he became my business partner. We work together every day, helping people find their voice, their truth, and their peace. The paranoia is gone now. The crushing loneliness has been replaced with a deep sense of purpose. I'm no longer scared, no longer haunted by the whispers of doubt. I'm free. And as for Alex and his mother, they're in prison. And I hope they live a very, very lonely life. I know the feeling.